Hi, I'm Kirsty and this is my grandparents' dog May. And today I'm going to show you how to make this pet bandana using my little star sewing pattern. You'll find a link to the pattern in the description of this video. You'll need some fabric, I use 100% cotton, some scissors, a tape measure, a pen to mark your fabric, something with a pointy end, I use an old makeup brush, a bodkin is optional, a large safety pin, a needle and thread for sewing on the bells, some fabric clips, a personalised tag, this is optional, some bells, I can link the ones I used in the description of this video, and either 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch elastic, I use 1/2 inch. In this video I'm going to be using 2 different coloured fabric. This is completely optional, you can just use one if you'd prefer. If you do want to use 2 fabrics, I recommend folding the pattern in half and cutting out a piece of fabric that is big enough for each half. If you're only using one fabric, you're going to want to cut one piece the entire length of the pattern. Before you start, I recommend giving your fabric a really good iron. If you are only using one fabric, you can skip the next couple of steps. We're now going to place our fabrics right sides together. What this means is the pretty sides of our fabrics should be facing each other. Once that's done, clip it to hold it in place. Now we're going to sew a straight line down that side of the fabric that we've just clipped. I use the edge of my presser foot as a guide while I'm sewing this part, and make sure you always remember to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Once that's done, you're going to want to iron that seam open. I start by opening the piece of fabric and just finger pressing that seam open. And then just give that a good iron on both sides. If you're only using one fabric, you're going to join us now on the next step. Fold your fabric in half lengthways, right sides together, and give that fold a good press. Place the pattern onto the fabric, making sure that the centre of the pattern is placed directly on that centre seam if you're using the 2 fabrics. Add some fabric clips to hold the pattern in place. Now it's time to draw around the pattern. Once you're done, it should look like this. Add some clips to hold the fabric in place and take it over to your sewing machine. You're going to want to start sewing just above the tab. Don't forget to backstitch at the start and the end. When you get to each point, you're going to want to make sure your needle is in the fabric. Lift up your presser foot, swivel the fabric round, pop your presser foot back down, and then continue to sew. And now you should have something that looks like this. I start the cutting by cutting each of the side tabs. Just follow the lines that you've drawn. Starting from the raw edge of the fabric, you're going to cut a straight line down into the lowest part of the point. You're going to want to cut as close as you can without actually cutting the stitches. I find doing this is what stops my fabric from puckering when I turn the fabric right side out. Next, you're going to want to cut around each of those triangles. I usually leave about 1/4 inch from the stitch line. Once you've done that, you should have something that looks like this. Now we're going to cut each of the points. Doing this is what gives us a really crisp and clean finish when we turn the fabric right side out. We're now going to use our large safety pin to help us turn the fabric right side out. If you've ever sewn a scrunchie, this is the exact same process. It can sometimes be a little bit tricky, but just take your time with this. And then you should be left with a tube without any points. This is where I take my old makeup brush and I gently start pushing those points through. You don't want to use anything too sharp or push too hard because you'll end up breaking through some of those seams. And now it should look like this. Now take it back over to your ironing board and give it a really good press. Make sure all of those seams are laying nice and flat before you move on to the next part. You're going to want to take one of the side tabs and fold it in on itself. Once you've done that, give it a final iron. For this part, you're going to want to start sewing approximately 1/4 inch away from the side tab and 3/4 inch away from the folded edge. Sew a straight line all the way down, back stitching at the start and the end. Feel free to mark this line if you find that makes it easier for you. For this bandana to be the perfect fit for your pet, I recommend using a soft measuring tape to measure your pet's neck. Once you have that measurement, add 1 inch to that number. For example, my dog's neck is 14 inches, so I've cut my elastic to be 15 inches long. I'm using a bodkin to thread my elastic, but you can just use your safety pin. I usually add a clip at the end to stop my elastic pulling all the way through. Once that's done, I give it a good stretch to make sure the elastic hasn't twisted inside the channel. Now we're going to take both ends of the elastic and overlap them by about 1/4 inch. Using a zigzag stitch, you're going to want to go back and forth a couple of times. This makes sure the stitch is nice and secure. Now we want to put the raw edge of the tab into the folded edge. If you're adding a personalised tag, you can just slide this in here and then just add a clip to keep it secure. Using a regular straight stitch, we're going to close that opening. Don't forget to back stitch at the start and the end. Once that's done, I just move the fabric around the elastic and you should have something that looks like this. If you'd like, you can totally leave it here, but for the next part we're going to add the bells. As I mentioned earlier, I will add a link to the bells I used in the description of this video. For this part, we're going to hand stitch those bells on, so you're going to take your needle and thread and just add a couple of stitches to make sure the bells are all nice and secure. You would use this exact same process if you were going to add pom-poms instead of bells to your bandana. Once you've added all your bells and you're happy, just cut away any of those loose threads and then your project is complete. Now it's time to just try it on your model. Thank you so much for watching my video. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to my channel, and I'll be posting more videos like this again soon.